Hello and welcome to the last session of the day. Let's check if our presenter is online. Trish, are you here? Can you unmute yourself?
Yes, I'm here.
Cool. And now you can share your camera because you need to show that astounding jacket you have.
Yeah, can you see me?
Yes, we can. Woohoo!
Hooray!
In any case, I will stop sharing so that you can share, and I will do a brief intro and then step out of your way because I'm really looking forward to hearing what you have to say. So if you have been in testing, I'm not talking about you, Trish, but if you listen, have been testing, and hopefully you have heard about Trish and you have read what she says because she's very active on Twitter. And she has been working over 20 years in all over the software industry in a lot of companies, including larger companies like Google and Microsoft. And today she's the engineering manager or an engineering manager at ClimChamp in Melbourne. And
in Brisbane.
Oh, Brisbane, sorry.
Yeah, that's all right.
Haven't been there in a while. And I really like the talk that Trish is going to give because I think that a lot of us have kind of a dream. Yeah, if I could only be a consultant and manage my own time and do whatever I want. And from experience, because I was a consultant for a couple of years, then there are pretty cool days, but there's quite a lot of days that people don't really tell you how it is. So I'm really, really looking forward to it. So Trish, take it from here, and I'll just be quiet for a while. Go ahead.
Cool. Yeah. All right. You can all see my slides, I assume?
Yes, we can.
Hooray. Just wanted to double check that before I get into it. But hey, everyone. Thank you for the intro, Joel. I'm going to be talking about being an independent consultant. I'm not an independent consultant anymore, but this is a story of my last 4 years of 2016 through to 2020 of when I was an independent consultant and what that was like for me. And the roller coaster is a little bit of a clue, which may give you an idea of maybe why I'm not an independent consultant anymore. So let's get into that. Hey, the year was 2016. And I had just come back from San Francisco where I worked at Google, and I'd quit my job at Google and I had landed in sunny Brisbane thinking, hey, wouldn't it be great if I started my own company? I could build a startup, that kind of thing. That'd be cool. The problem with building a startup from nothing is you don't have any money, right? I had some savings, so I wasn't too worried about going broke just yet, but income sounded like a nice idea, right? But you know, it's fine. I had startup dreams. I'd figure it out. It's okay. I was full of hope and energy. So on the startup side, I started thinking about just building a mobile app, right? So the first thing I did was a friend and I started building this app. It was like this joke app, right? It was called Fish to Duck. Basically, you take a picture of a fish with your phone, and then it turns it into a picture of a duck. So obviously, everybody's got a use for that. But the idea really was that we could find out if we could ship a mobile app. And then after that, we would know, hey, we can ship a mobile app. Maybe we can make one for reals that might make us into a business and make us money. So I had these kind of projects going on, right? Which was really fun. And then my friend Anne-Marie Charrett, who some of you might know or have heard of, she's a consultant down in Sydney, and she offered me this job as a subcontracting role here in Brisbane at this big corporation here. And it was really good money. And it was just this 10-day contract. And I thought, you know, this is all right. You know, like I can just turn up, do 10 days of work, like maybe 1 day a week for 10 weeks or a couple of days a week for 5 weeks. And I'll get some decent money coming in. And the rest of the time I can do whatever I want. Sounds like a great way to have a job, right? And I was enjoying the work too, solving people's test automation problems. I got to turn up, meet some nice people, you know, do what I do best and then get out. Perfect. So year one was a bit of a short year, but I learned a few things anyway, right? First, I learned that if you take consulting contracts, you can make quick money, right? Who knew that that was a thing, having like a little short-term contract, but then being able to make some money quickly? Cool. being part-time was kind of nice. It means that I could have that work-life balance that everybody talks about, but I would actually have like a real balance of 50-50 because I'd be spending quite a lot of time just doing what I felt like and maybe not as much time doing work, living the dream, loving it. Brisbane is surprisingly not anything like Silicon Valley. I know, shocking. But so what I mean by that is that it wasn't like Silicon Valley where every person has a startup and everybody knows what a startup is. And, you know, everybody's all like, oh, I've got to get this much MAU and, oh, my Series A is going to happen. Like, no, Brisbane, it's not like that. We don't have a lot of tech startups. The tech sector isn't huge here. So it meant that in terms of trying to build a startup myself, it was hard to kind of find new information and support and people to support that dream. But also it meant in terms of my consulting, I had to do a lot of networking because I hadn't lived in Brisbane since about 2004, where I was a university student. So I really had to get to know the community, get to know what companies were here. And as well as that, people here hadn't really heard of a lot of the more modern testing practices, you know, like things like agile testing and like the way that DevOps ties into testing and observability and how testing ties into continuous delivery and et cetera, right? So I had to do a lot of work there in terms of explaining to people what these things were and then convincing them they needed them. So it was pretty different. And finally, I made a big commitment to myself to put my health first over my job. That had bitten me previously. And if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. You can't go to work anymore if you're not healthy. So that was a big lesson that I was really taking to heart. Hey, year two, you know what? This consulting stuff, pretty easy. I feel like I got a handle on it, you know, great job. Jobs were kind of coming to me at that point. It was pretty cool. Like I would just network with people, which is something I like to do anyway. You know, I like to come to these conferences or go to meetup groups, just meet new people. And also I was getting a lot of work off the back of a conference talk I did back in about 2014 in Boston. And a few people had seen that and then seen that I was doing consulting and decided that's somebody I need to hire, right? So I was getting kind of these 10-day contracts from startups because the talk I gave was targeted at startups that were at a certain growth point and how I could help them with their testing/technical debt issues. So I really didn't have to do that much to get work. It just seemed to be coming to me. And then the rest of the time, I just kind of did what I wanted. It was great. Yeah, just hang out by the pool. This was the roof of the building that I was living in at the time. I used to come hang out here and there were these 4 ladies who were just like these kind of like housewives living this luxurious life. And I just hang out with them and party. And then I'd work maybe 1 or 2 days a week. And, you know, I don't have any dependents, right? I've got 2 cats and I didn't have the cats back then. So I can afford to get away with this kind of life, right? But it was good. I just aimed to sort of cover my expenses and just do what I felt like in the meantime. Yeah, all good. Also, I could do all of the side projects. Yeah. So I launched my mobile app. We had a launch party, got about 20 users. Hooray. I started a startup meetup in town to try to educate people in Brisbane about startups so that I could learn more about it or something. Anyway, that didn't end well, but anyway, hooray, hobby. Also started making some t-shirts, which was really fun. This doesn't make money. None of this made money, right? T-shirts, every week or so, I might get a little message in my inbox saying, oh, you've made a sale from Redbubble. And I usually get about 30 cents from selling a sticker. And occasionally I might get a big windfall of like $5. So I'm not in it for the money, although I love making t-shirts. But yeah, side projects. It was really fun to be able to just afford to be able to do these and take the time to do it. Loving this lifestyle. So, but I did learn a few lessons about consulting that year. First of all, pricing really hard because when you're the product, now you get in this kind of identity crisis thing of like, oh my God, how much am I worth, right? So I found that really difficult. What I found helpful in terms of pricing my services, first I tried to think about my last full-time salary and do some complicated maths on that and get kind of a ballpark. It wasn't really that useful, but I guess it gave me an idea in myself of like, well, somebody else paid me that, so that must be correct. My subcontracting experience from before through Anne-Marie gave me an idea of what people were willing to pay for my services, which is what I ended up kind of basing my initial pricing on. But I also looked around for similar consulting services in town that would be comparable to mine. So and see what they charged as well. Just kind of ask around. And that gave me an idea that maybe I wasn't actually charging enough. So yeah, I still found it really difficult, but it's because people don't talk about money as well, right? But yeah, I figured something out. I think generally there was a rule where if people are willing to pay what you tell them like too quickly, then you're probably not charging enough. I suffered from a lot of insomnia at the time, but what was really great about working in this way was that I didn't really have to worry about working 9 to 5 for the entire week and then catching up on my sleep on the weekend, because I was used to that. I was used to maybe getting 3 or 4 hours a night, and then I'd have to catch up on the weekend of all the sleep. But working in this way meant that maybe I'd have to do a 9 to 5 once or twice a week. And then the rest of the time I could just sleep until noon and then, get up and do something else, which I think is kind of cool, right? Like, I think it's hard for a lot of people to have to fit their lives into this 9 to 5 hourly place. And I could be so much more productive once I didn't have to worry about that restriction. So when you are the product, you are the brand, right? So I had to build up my own brand. I feel like I've already got a pretty good brand in kind of the testing area. And that was helpful to kind of bring that across to my work. So that's why I called my business Trish Khoo Consulting, so that when people Googled my name, they would see all the other stuff about me and go, oh, look, very impressive, right? That really helped bring people to me as well, because people would mention me by name when I was networking and say, Trish did a really good job on this. And yeah, this ended up being a really good source of leads for me and my business. But yeah, it was great. I loved the flexible work hours. That was definitely the biggest advantage of working in this way. Year 3 wasn't so easy. Yeah. So once I got into the 3rd year, stuff got not so easy, right? So the first difficult thing that happened was that so there was that big company that Anne-Marie subcontracted me to at the start. Now, there are only probably 3 or 4 big corporate companies in Brisbane that will hire a lot of tech people. And this is one of them. And yeah, that company had a merger with another big company. And then everything just went nuts after that. Like, every contact I had at that company just left, either because they were made redundant or they just quit, right? And then even the people who were remaining, when I'd try to get kind of a new contact there, they weren't really willing to hire consultants because it was just kind of chaotic at the time. So nobody could really negotiate budgets or anything like that. They didn't know what was going on. Now, the problem with this is this company had contracted me more than any other place, right? And this is the kind of thing where consultants will say, what you need is one big consistent client to keep that reliable revenue coming in for your business, right? And this was my one big consistent client who had contracted me for like a lot of time in the last couple of years. And they were just gone. So now it just meant that I had to up all of my sales to try to find some more gigs, right? And yeah, I was sort of getting gigs here and there, but this really worried me. So towards the end of the year, after really struggling to find that much work, I had heard about some training opportunities. So a few people I knew came to me with these training opportunities. Like a friend of mine in Sydney said that if I developed a test automation training course, maybe a 2 or 3 day course, then she could set up training courses and fill them with attendees, and I could make some really good money out of that, right? And it was really tempting. Like the sort of figures she was throwing at me were like, oh, I do 2 or 3 days work a month and then I get enough money that would last me like the whole month. That would be amazing. Or even like several months. Pretty cool. I thought, well, hey, I could also do that, set those courses up myself in Brisbane. No reason why I can't. How hard can it be? And then in addition to that, I'd been approached by a couple of other people who do stuff online. Ministry of Test was looking for some trainers for their online testing dojo as well. Even though the sort of money that you're going to make for pre-recorded training courses isn't like a lot, like you wouldn't have that as your main income. It's kind of nice because it's like passive income. Once it's recorded and there, it's like you get a little bit of extra coming in. And I thought, well, I can reuse some of my training materials in these kind of little short courses, right? And also Janet Gregory, who you may also know and have heard of, she and I started chatting and she told me that they were looking for an official trainer for their wildly successful course, Agile Testing for the Whole Team. And she suggested maybe I could be that trainer for Australia. And I thought, oh, that's a great idea. That's a really good opportunity. So I ended up going on this kind of cool Europe tour because I was going to Agile Testing Days in Germany and giving a keynote there. And I developed a training course. What was it called? It was called how to have a super testing team, something like that. It was about how you can become a better test manager, essentially. And it was like shaped around like this Dungeons and Dragons format for this training course. And it was sold out. It was wildly popular, got amazing ratings. So I was feeling pretty good about that course too, right? And while I was in Europe, I hopped over to London to learn that training course with Janet, that Agile Testing for the Whole Team, so that I could bring that course to Australia. So that was, that was a really good opportunity too, right? And as well as that, I also hopped over to Amsterdam and gave a talk there. Like this was a fun, cool trip. The not as cool part of that trip was when I got sick for a whole month, both during and after the trip, which really hit me hard and took a lot of time out of my schedule there in terms of getting all this training off the ground. So at that point, I'd invested not just a lot of time and money developing this course for the conference and also going over there and learning this course from Janet, but I'd also sunk about a month into developing this Foundations of Test Automation course as well back in Brisbane. And by December, I'd started trying to market this course locally and also online, right? And yeah, I didn't have a lot of success in that, but I was kind of still a bit hopeful. I thought, okay, well, I'll figure this out. I'll market better next year, right? So a few things I learned that year. Having that one big client, I think for consulting is really, really important because otherwise you're just selling constantly and it's exhausting and you need something consistent to fall back on to know that you're going to keep being in business year after year, right? Not having that really hurt me. The online training, and when I say online training, I mean I tried to have a 2 or 3 day training course, like 8 hours a day, and turn that into an online course, right? And the funny thing about that is that even though you're giving the same training with the same materials for the same amount of time, people, because it's online, people expect it to be way cheaper, and it wasn't. So I thought that was really weird. And I wonder if that would change with this pandemic situation as well, where now everything has to be online, right? But at the time, it was more like people would expect to pay something like $2,000 for a course in person and maybe $200 or less for the course online, right? Maybe $20, I don't know. So that online course thing wasn't going to work. And I really wanted to do that because it would open up a bigger market for me, but no go. Yeah, really learned as well that my time is money. So I'm a pretty generous person by nature, I think. And I tend to do a lot of freebies like conference talks or like giving people advice, kind of mentoring, help somebody with this and that, right? And I think a lot of people would, right? But when you're running your own business, all of this time that you're giving people for free just kind of adds up. And you start to think, well, this is work I'm doing. And this is my skills that I'm giving to people. And it's just for free. Like, I'm not getting compensated for this. And I could be investing that time into my business. So what am I doing, right? So I started being a little more strict about that. And one thing I started doing was that if I was invited to speak at a conference, especially if it was like a keynote type of speech, I would just start asking, yeah, I would love to do that. How much will you pay me for that, basically? And I thought that was a pretty ballsy move, but I was surprised to find how many people would come back saying, oh, we'll pay you this much. Like that offer was always there. And I just didn't even know until I asked. So I just started doing that. I didn't know there was a budget for this type of thing at most conferences, and they were just kind of waiting for people to ask. And yeah, in addition to that, things like mentoring. If I sort of said, well, I'd love to mentor you, but this is my usual rate, hourly rate. Would you be willing to pay that much? A few people were, right? Because they value the service that you're giving them, right? And in terms of business advice, like, oh, I'd like to pick your brain. You ever hear that phrase? I'd love to pick your brain. It sounds disgusting. But yeah, I would charge for that, right? The only time I wouldn't charge for that, though, is if it was a business where I thought I could probably get some consulting deal out of it, in which case it makes a lot of sense for me to give them a bit of a freebie in terms of maybe a few hours of my time just helping them out. And then I could sell them on a few weeks of my time potentially, right? So that's like more of a sales marketing type of exercise. Yeah, travel costs a lot of money. So that trip really cost me not just in actual money, like that I had to pay for the trip and everything. I mean, the conference did cover quite a lot of it for me because I was going over for a conference, but you still got to pay for things like you're eating out every day, and that adds up. You're still taking buses and trains and whatever around, and so you're paying extra money for that. And just the amount of time, that was what really hurt, because when you've got a business, when you stop working, your whole business stops, right? So in terms of being able to take time out to do things like travel, or even take time out to just be sick. Like, I was sick for a whole month, right? It hurts your business so much, because in consulting, it's not even just about the work you're doing right now. It's about the work that you are teeing up for the future. And I picked actually a pretty bad time of year to go traveling and get sick, because at the end of the year, even though it's conference season, you're also going into this real slow season in consulting where around December, January, February, businesses just shut down, right? And so if you're already in, then fine, you've got work. But if you want to sell, nobody's going to talk to you. They're all on holiday or whatever. They don't want to talk to you then. So you need to be filling your consulting sales pipeline towards the end of that year. Before November, basically, right? And I was too busy with conferences and training and stuff to do that. Like, I took about a month out in August to focus on training. And then that meant that I wasn't filling my sales pipeline. And especially when I didn't have my one big client, that was kind of a crucial mistake there, which I would learn about later. I'd like to say that it got better after that, but no, it got even crazier. Yeah, year 4, which was just last year, actually. Things just took a little turn around that roller coaster. So the training that I'd invested in, yeah. So I had these courses that I'd made. There was agile testing for the whole team, which was a 3-day course. And there was foundations of test automation, right, which I'd built myself, and that was a 2-day course. So I was trying to sell the foundations of test automation as like here's my course, I've set up a little room somewhere, you register and you turn up and I teach you type of thing, right? I'd initially tried to market it just like through social media, through just telling people about it, turning up to meetups and going, hey, register, whatever, right? Nothing. I didn't get any signups, right? I was lucky to get a sign up of somebody who kind of took pity on me, managed to get their employer to pay for them, and said basically like, if you get more people, I'll go. That's like the best I was managing to get, right? And I went back to my friend who has experience selling training courses, and she was having no luck either, right? I mean, she was having a little more than me, but not much. And that was a bad sign. But she told me with her experience selling these courses that you can't just market and expect the work to come in for you, right? You have to actually do direct sales, which was terrifying to me. So she started coaching me on selling these training courses and just cold calling people. And that is just the most terrifying thing to me. I hated that. And I didn't even manage to do much of it because it just scared me so much. But yeah, as a result of that, I couldn't fill these courses, right? So I decided to go direct to companies and try to sell these courses as on-site courses. So the advantage of this is that sometimes you can get a little bit of consulting work at the same time. That's a bonus. But in addition to that, usually if you can sell like a 3-day course, like agile testing for the whole team, to a company that has 80, 100 engineers in it, then that's a lot of money, right? Because usually you're charging per head, and I would kind of price based on, here's what I would charge per head if they were just coming to like an offsite course, but I'll give you an enormous discount because I'm coming on site instead, right? Which is something like 30% or something crazy, right? Because it's the same for me, but I'm doing a lot less sales. So this is kind of where I juggled it. And I was so iffy about that pricing as well. Like I said, pricing is hard. So I reached out to some of the people I knew who had more experience in that, just to sanity check myself, go, am I charging right for this? Am I charging too much? And they all said, no, that's correct. Like, if anything, you're probably not charging enough, you know. I was like, okay, well, this could be really good for me. You know, I could make most of my year's like worth of covering my expenses if I can just get one of these deals, right? So there were these 3 companies that I was chasing for this deal, trying to sell that agile testing for the whole team. And it took months of negotiating, right? Like, it wasn't easy at all. And this is where all the time goes. It's not the 3 days you're spending teaching the course. It's the 3 months you're spending beforehand trying to convince people to buy it. And that's where all your time goes, and that's where all your money goes, right? So yeah, I was negotiating for 3 months. One of the and I thought, this has got to work, right? One of these companies has got to buy this, and I just need one. You know, they're all so promising. Nah, it didn't work. So one of the companies, the guy who I was talking to left the company, and he said that he basically, like, don't waste your time, right? Like, this company's not going to buy this anymore. There's a reason that he left, and, they just won't have the budget on it. They're just going to lead me on. I went, okay. The second company that I was chasing, it was going so well. Like, we were almost ready to sign. And then right at the end, this HR procurement person, oh my God, HR procurement people. Don't get me wrong, one of my best friends is an HR procurement person, but I would never want to run into her in my professional life. So this HR procurement person, saunters in and goes, oh, you know how there's the customer, but then there's the real customer? That's me. And then proceeded to just be an absolute a-hole to me. Like started telling me I didn't know what I was doing as a trainer and a consultant. I didn't know how to price anything. Demanded to see my profit margins just to prove what a idiot I was, kind of thing, right? So I don't care about, I don't know what the value of this course is. Why should I bother paying this much, right? Like, but just in a really mean, awful, just undermine your confidence way, right? To the point where the other people in the room were horrified. And I left that just feeling absolutely crushed. And that just meant that when the third client got back to me and said, yeah, we're interested, but this isn't the right time, I didn't have the energy to follow that up, right? Usually, if you're trying to sell something like that, you would want to just keep checking in and keep pushing that, but I just couldn't do it anymore. All of my self-esteem had just been shattered by this deal that just tanked. So I fell into this big pit of depression for a while. And the worst part of it was that during that time, because I'd been putting so much of my effort into all this training, I really hadn't made that much progress on trying to fill my sales pipeline and getting that one big client back. So I guess at that point, I thought, you know what, to hell with it. What did I start out this thing trying to do? I started out this thing trying to build a product and build a startup. You know what? Cutting my losses on the training. Consulting, I'll figure it out, but I'm building this product, damn it. So I started this platform about group mentoring. So the idea being that I've mentored a lot of people in the past, and what I found is it doesn't scale. Like there's a lot of people who want mentoring from me, but there's only one me, and I have limited time. In addition to that, if I try to charge what my usual consulting rate to people to mentor them, they don't like that. It's a lot of money for an individual to pay. It's less money. It doesn't seem like a lot for a company to pay, but for an individual, not that much. I mean, it is a lot. And so I came up with this idea of group mentoring. So I could get 3 or 4 people in kind of this mentoring session. And then I would be able to sort of coach all of them because they all have similar career goals. Like they want to move from manual testing to test automation, or they want to move into management, something like that, right? And so I kind of built this platform in the most lean way you could, right? Like it was just like a WordPress site with some email marketing automation set up. And I had this part-time assistant who was kind of doing all the scheduling stuff for me remotely for like 4 hours a week. And then I launched it, and to my horror, it was wildly successful. I got 1 sign up a day for the next 30 days, and I was ecstatic, but also completely overwhelmed. Like my lean system was hitting its breaking point, right? And it turned out my assistant really wasn't that good, and so that wasn't helping me either, and I had to let her go. Yeah, so it got to a point where even though this was going well, I had to make a choice of, will I keep going with it, or will I just kind of let it go? Like if I keep going with it, I'll have to invest in it, either my money or someone else's money, so that I can hire somebody to do some part of this business while I do the other part of it for a while, because one person was not going to be enough. And if I spent all my time programming an actual platform, that wouldn't leave me time to do the other things. And I mean, spoiler alert, I chose to just not continue with it at the time. And yeah, but the reason for that, by the way, was that the main reason was I bought an apartment at that time, right? So I was, a relative of mine was going to sell their apartment. They gave me first dibs, and I was like, oh, cool, I'll do that. So yeah, then I was just doing all kinds of projects, right? Because I just bought this apartment, and I thought, well, I'm going to need some extra money. I've just got to take on jobs, right? I started taking all the jobs, right? You might know me as a test automation person. No, I'm everything now, right? I'm a graphic designer. Hey, now I'm an evangelist for conferences. Yes, Now I'm a business analyst. I'm writing business documentation for people's startup investors. Woo, right? So and it was exciting and fun, but my God, I had 8 jobs at once at one point, and that is too many jobs, too many. But it was cool because I could be anything. So some lessons from that year. Training, not the same as consulting, totally different sales approach. You don't market and network, you just got to direct sales. It's really difficult. And then you're negotiating a big contract, which is pretty similar in consulting, but you're selling a very different product. I got very good at reading contracts, and you have to when you're taking on this many contracts, right? You have to get very good at reading about IP clauses and non-compete agreements and stuff like that. Like one contract I was going to take for part-time work was saying we can log all of your keyboard strokes when at any given time on your own hardware, and we'll attach a GPS tracking device to your car. Like, what? This is crazy. I'm not signing this. Read contracts, read them well. Empathy, I found it was really, really interesting to me that when I started learning more about sales and negotiation, that the first thing they teach you is that empathy is the key to being successful in that. And when I think about salespeople, I don't think about empathy, but it makes sense, right? You have to know what the other person wants in order to be able to convince them that what they want is what you're giving them, right? Or more to the point, like understand what they want so you know what to give them so that everybody wins in this situation. And I mean, it's the same with coaching. So learning how to develop a good sense of empathy through listening was so essential to just all of the things I was doing. And yeah, just being able to be anything, that was cool. That was one of the best parts of having this kind of small business. So, I mean, at the end of that story, because I bought the apartment and put all of my savings into this apartment, I really didn't have anything to fall back on. So it seemed way too risky to just keep going with this consulting. And that's why I decided I should try to look for full-time work. Sounds sad, right? But, silver lining, one of, those 3 big training deals that tanked. One of the developers that I was negotiating with was really cute, so I asked him out. So yeah, that's still a thing. Also, my former assistant also asked me out, so I was like, oh, okay, yeah, why not? So that was a thing for a while too. They were both cool with that. Yeah, it was a whole thing. Story for another time. Anyway, if I had to kind of sum up what I'd learned over the entire 4 years, I think the main things I learned were things like networking. Oh my God, yeah, it's so crucial to getting leads in consulting. It was just like, get a coffee, yes, let's do that. Oh, you're gonna, please introduce me to people, and the people introducing you like crazy. Just talking to people constantly, because even if you meet someone who doesn't give you a job, they can introduce you to someone else, right? And it just pays off so much. That thing I mentioned about it being seasonal, yeah, you've really got to understand when those seasons happen. And I think it's fairly consistent everywhere, and that just, well, I don't even know, right? Maybe it's different in your country, but in my country, it's like December, January, February, because it's like the holiday time, everything just kind of shuts down. And so you have to be ready for that. But in addition to that, in our line of work, if we're going to do things like conferences for networking, those all start around kind of, July, August kind of time through to November. So if you want to get in on those and start applying to speak there, because that'll get you in for free, then that means you've got to start making those applications at the start of the year as well. So you've really got to be prepared like 6 months in advance, 3 to 6 months in advance all the time. Charge people for your time. Don't let them get away with just taking stuff for free. You got to know your worth. And yeah, people always describe consulting as this feast or famine thing, and it really is. So if you do think about getting into it, just prepare yourself for that, right? You got to be prepared, and you got to have a big support network and a big financial kind of savings to keep you going. If I was going to do it again next time, I would probably take longer contracts. This whole 10-day contract thing, which I was doing most of the time, it was a lot of sales work for very little return. Unfortunately, the main reason that happened was because I was dealing with startups and they don't have as much money to splash around as big corporations. But I think if I did it again, I'd take at least one 3 to 6 month contract a year just to make sure that I had something substantial coming into my bank. I actually did try to form some kind of like consulting super friends group locally at some point to support each other in a non-competitive way. And I think that was kind of working okay, but I'd really love to have had a solid partnership so that I could have, we could have sort of fallen back on each other when one of us couldn't work for some reason, right? Just having it all on one person is a lot. It's a lot of pressure. And if you, like I said, if you have to stop for health or any other reason, then the whole thing stops and you might miss like a window of time that's very crucial in the year for your business. But yeah, put your health first. Always do that. If you find yourself getting so stressed out that you're feeling physical symptoms, stop. It's not worth it. So I just want to give a big thank you to the people who really helped me in my business in the last 4 years. Anne-Marie, just amazing, love her. She actually got me 2 jobs and was just a great mentor as somebody who's done this for a long time before. Just gave me so much good advice as well. Catherine, she gave me a lot of the sales coaching that I needed and just a lot of perspective and occasionally a very long motivational speech to try to convince me that I was actually a really great, smart, amazing person when I felt like the opposite of that. And my friend Damien McLennan, he's this guy in Brisbane who was just an amazing sponsor to me. And by that, I mean that he would go out of his way to introduce me to people that that I would benefit from knowing, like CEOs and CTOs of companies that I might want to work at, or even just interesting people that might be able to help me out in some way. And he would kind of do it without even me having to ask. He would just proactively be like, hey, I'll take an interest in your career and your business and I'm going to help you out. And that's just amazing. Some tools I love, I want to give a shout out to those. Unsplash, which is a free stock image tool that I used throughout this presentation. And also Canva, which I used to make this presentation. They both just such time savers and make all of my stuff look very professional, which is so important for branding in your business. Calendly saved my butt so many times because when you're trying to schedule something with somebody, there's this whole time zone dance and it sucks. But this makes it easy for people to just schedule when they need to, and I relied on it so much. Rounded is one of these invoicing softwares where instead of you having to nag people for money, it does it for you, and that takes a lot of stress off you having to do that because it's an awkward type of thing to do, and getting paid on time is really important. Yeah, and of course all of my wonderful clients, everyone who hired me. I loved all of them. I didn't have a client who I didn't like. I genuinely enjoyed working for all of them. So yeah, special thanks to them. And thank you to you for listening to my story.
Trish, I was muted laughing out loud on some of the parts, basically because, and again, this is your session, obviously, but we shared quite a lot of stuff in the process, but I'm not going to go into that unless I'm in Brisbane and I take you out for a coffee. But it was amazing. I really, really like it. We don't have, you know what? There are a couple questions. I'm going to ask you just one, then let you go. What is the most important character for leading an independent consultant?
Say again, sorry?
What would be the most important character in order to be an independent consultant?
Oh, like character trait?
Yep.
I would say, for me at least, it's courage. You've got to just be able to just keep picking yourself up and taking a risk and getting out there. Like it's hard. And when it does get hard, you kind of can't be shy and going like, oh, I can't do it. Everybody will think I'm silly when I ask them for this price or that price or something like that. Like you've really just got to just get out there and try it.
I was feeling that I should say thick skin, but you put it even better than that. It was a great session, and I think that you put a lot of points for people who might think about this. And I like it that you shared everything so that people understand that it's not that glamorous life. I mean, it's not, as you said, for some people, it just looks like it's easy work. It's never, but there are the rock stars who manage to do it. And I guess that, well, just to end up on a high note, it did end up well for you. You're right now happy on your full-time job, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I did go back to full-time work. I actually managed to cure my insomnia, which really helped that out. But yeah, I think it ended up well, but not necessarily for my business. But even then, like for all that I'm saying that it was difficult, I don't regret any of it. Like it was an amazing experience.
Excellent. So thank you very much for sharing it. And again, best of luck. And next time I'm in Brisbane, I'll take you out for a cup of coffee or a beer. I think it'll be better.
Please, I would love that. Thank you.